Hi, this is Mark Davidson with Camfil USA. If you recall, in the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic, there were many hospitals that were experiencing a heavy load of seriously ill patients. And one of the ways to treat these patients was in negatively pressurized isolation areas. These are rooms where the contamination, the virus from the patient can't get outside the room and infect other areas of the hospital. So when these hospitals were needing to expand this, because hospitals only have a few of these isolation rooms normally, they were in a position where they were having to convert standard patient rooms into these isolation rooms. And in fact, you may have heard of arenas and things like that, like the Javits Center in New York, McCormick Center in Chicago. Some of these areas were being converted into patient treatment areas. So what was happening then is hospitals were needing the equipment to convert these rooms into isolation areas. And they quickly ran into a shortage of certain equipment. And one of those was the machine that generates the negative pressure, which is fans and HEPA filters and things like that. So they began turning to suppliers to get those pieces of equipment. And one of the companies they turned to was Camfil, because we have a high presence in the healthcare industry. So Camfil then turned to its regional product manager for containment and cam cleaners, a gentleman named Keith Woolard. And Keith honestly hit it out of the park and engineered and developed a wonderful piece of equipment that not only was able to do that, but it actually has a side benefit, which I'm sure he'll tell you about as well. So what we'd like to do is to talk to Keith and ask him a few questions. So Keith is on the line with us. So Keith, if you would, take a second and introduce us to yourself.
Thank you, Mark. My name is Keith Woolard. I'm the Regional Product Manager for Cam Cleaners and Containment Products for Camfil USA. I've been with the company Camfil for over 15 years now in various roles within the engineering and research and development department, and have recently been transitioned into the product management role over the past couple of years.
Thanks, Keith. So, you know, one thing that strikes me right off the bat is there's a word in your title that jumped out, which is containment. What exactly does that mean in the filter world when someone says containment?
When we're talking about containment in the filtration industry, what we're talking about is protecting the air supply and exhaust in and outside of the inside these laboratories and inside of these facilities, as well as protecting the air that's being exhausted to the outside. So we take, for example, there's sensitive government installations around the globe where we're trying to protect the interior of the facility and clean that air up. And we're trying to contain the potentially contaminated particles, say chemical warfare, particulate, and gases from entering the building. We're also taking the air that's inside of, say, a biosafety research facility or nuclear facility and any other place that's doing high-level research, and we're protecting the personnel as well as protecting the environment from the air being exhausted outside. So essentially what we're doing is containing or isolating the particulate that's inside this airstream and protecting the other HVAC equipment from being exposed to that potentially contaminant as well. And when we talk about containment, there's really no margin for error when it comes to containment filtration.
Okay, that certainly makes sense. That word containment, that certainly fills in. Would you say that Camfil and yourself in particular, have you done a lot of business in these containment areas?
We have. For many years, we have provided containment filtration systems in various applications that range from biosafety, low-level, level 2s, all the way up to level 4 and level 4 ag facilities. I don't want to disclose any of the actual locations, but we've done quite a bit of universities and government facilities worldwide in supplying high filtration containment equipment.
Great, thank you. Certainly understandable why you can't disclose the companies involved or the locations for security reasons. Now, one other thought I had, would you say that some of the knowledge and know-how that you and the company has developed in these high-level containment areas, has that philosophy of perfection, so to speak, has that carried over into a product like this? Not that this is a lower level, but it kind of is. Would you say you carried that philosophy over when developing products like this?
Yes, I would say that's certainly true, Mark. But I'd also say that it's not just the technical know-how, which is significant, don't get me wrong, when it comes to designing quality products. But we also carry over the basic philosophy of product quality into our products across all segments. But like I mentioned before, there's no room for error when it comes to containment. And that means that that system absolutely has to perform to its design function, regardless of what product segment that product is in.
Okay, great. That's good to know. Hey, I guess let's do this. Let's talk about this particular piece of equipment. So I guess to start off, can you give us a 40,000 foot kind of explanation and summary of what this device is?
Okay, yeah, so the product is our CamCleaner product line. It's designated by the CC in front of the model number, CC500. This product can deliver 500 CFM of HEPA filtered air, and it can be done in a couple of different configurations. This unit can be rolled into a particular space and used as an in-room air purifier for true recirculation air only. It can also be rolled into a room and have a duct collar attached to the exhaust side of the system, and that duct can be routed to the outdoor environment and create what we're calling a negative pressure or isolation style room.
Okay, all right. So then let's do this. Since this is a piece of filtration equipment, filter being the operative word there, let's talk about filters and HEPA filters, for example. Now, there's a term that's been tossed around quite a bit, and in fact, if you followed the news the last couple of days, you've heard Governor Cuomo of New York talk about HEPA filters. And I've also heard the phrase true HEPA an awful lot. So could you give us an idea from a technical filtration point of view, which is your background, what really is meant by the term HEPA filter?
Well, a HEPA filter is defined as a high efficiency particulate air filter. And I think that term true HEPA has evolved over the past couple of years because we've seen misuse of the term HEPA when it comes to various products, such as, say vacuum cleaners or other air purifiers, where they state a HEPA filter, but it's not necessarily a true HEPA filter in our definition. And what we mean by when we say a HEPA filter, we refer to all of our HEPA filters as true HEPA filters. But what we mean by that is that the HEPA filter has been tested against a standard, a globally or nationally recognized standard, such as IEST or EN 1822. And that means that that filter has a definition of being defined as a 99.97 minimum % efficiency on the 0.3 micron particulate size. So anybody that throws out the term HEPA that cannot supply a particular efficiency rating at a minimum of 99.97, the efficiency is suspect as it being defined as a HEPA filter. And to take it further for Camfil, when we manufacture our HEPA filters, all of our HEPA filters are labeled with the as-built tested efficiency and pressure drop performance data. And we put that label on all of the filters that are shipped.
Let me ask you before we get started looking at the unit, and we were talking mostly about healthcare because that was the driving force behind creating this machine because they were in such a need. But I suspect this has got application in other industries. Where else would this machine be useful?
That's correct. There's many other applications for any place that needs negative isolation, negative air pressure rooms created. We're talking about, not only healthcare centers, hospitals, but we look at, say, food and beverage segment. We look at retail spaces and office spaces, gyms, any sort of facility that needs enhanced clean air or clean air for that matter inside their facility.
Okay, great. Yeah, that makes sense. Being from the food and beverage industry, I know that there are areas where this would help out a great deal, and I know there's other industrial areas where they could use some help like you're talking about. Okay, let's take a look at the machine. Let's kind of start from the bottom up and kind of tell us what you put together here.
Okay, Mark, what we have here is the CC500. And this standard configuration here is a vertical orientation with air coming in from the bottom and being exhausted out the top through a prefilter and a high-capacity HEPA filter. Configuration here that you see is mounted on 4 polyurethane-style casters, swivel casters. They're lockable, so you can place it inside of a room somewhere, lock it into place, and use this as an in-room air purifier. What you can see, this is the front of the unit, and behind this panel, after you remove the 4 screws, we have a pre-filter, a HEPA filter, and a fan inside of here. On the back side, this is where all the power inlet and fan speed controls are located. You'll see a power inlet fuse supply with a on-off switch for the inlet power. And then we see a variable speed control that's going to control the fan speed down to about 10% of the rated flow of this system, so 50 CFM, and it'll allow it to max out at the 500 CFM rating. The power is supplied through a hospital-grade cord.
Hey Keith, is that a standard? Does that operate on standard 110 outlet? This is not a 220 or anything like that, is it?
That's correct. This product here is designed to be operated on your standard 110 volt outlets. The amp draw on this system here as it's running is just a little over 2 amps. The startup amperage is about 3 to 3.5. So yes, it
low cost. And then, so this is not going to significantly increase somebody's electrical usage at all, even if they had multiple units at that low of an amperage, right?
Not at all. It's about like operating a ceiling fan. Correct.
Okay, let's take. Can you show us the guts of it? Can we take a look at the filters?
Yeah. So there's 6 fasteners on the front of this system, and in your O&M kit that we provide, we have the O&M manual. We also have a hex key, a tool provided to remove these fasteners. I've got them removed for demonstration purposes only right now. So as you take the panel off, you'll notice one thing on the panel. It's a fully gasketed panel, so it seals all of the seal surfaces from the contaminated side, which is the bottom inlet side, all the way up to the HEPA seal surface. If you look inside the piece of equipment, you're going to see a pre-filter. And in this pre-filter here, we utilize our dual 9 MERV-9A pre-filter, and this is going to protect and prolong the life of that HEPA filter. The HEPA filter here you see is probably somewhat different than you would see in typical air purifiers. This is a HEPA filter that we use primarily in our biocontainment industry, a scan-tested 99.99% HEPA filter, high capacity. So we're pulling the air through this high-capacity filter and pre-filter using a very compact but high-performance backward curved impeller fan. So this fan here in this small profile, small diameter delivers a very large amount of CFM in this small footprint here.
So the HEPA filter that you were pointing out earlier, we were talking about how consumers need to be careful with that term HEPA. You were saying here, and I see those labels and things, and on that HEPA, that's what you were talking about, referring to earlier, that the filters are tested and labeled exactly how this particular filter performs. Is that what we're looking at on those labels?
That's correct. So what you see on here is a bit of operational information as well, the order numbers, some information that's really not relevant to the customer from just a performance standpoint. But more importantly, what you see here is the efficiency, the rated efficiency of the filter being 99.99, but you also see the tested efficiency, which is the as-built test data. So before this filter leaves the factory, it is put into a test rig that is built and tested in accordance with the relevant standard that I was mentioning earlier, the IEST standards. And they test this filter and display on the label the actual test performance data. So this particular filter here is 99.995% efficient. So a little more than what we rated it at, which is a good thing. But every filter that leaves the factory...
The quality of this filter is what you're saying. That is a 99.99% absolute HEPA filter, right?
That is correct. A 99.99 absolute scan-tested HEPA filter, and there's a little difference between overall efficiency tested and scan-tested, but this is a top-of-the-line HEPA filter installed in this CC500.
Okay, great. Okay, well, what else do we have there?
So as you move up, again, we have the fan. and I've talked about the back side of the unit where we do the power supply. But you also notice this filter here has a locking mechanism associated with it. Inside here we have thumb screws to be able to release the locking mechanism and raise the mechanism out of place to be able to remove this HEPA filter. This particular configuration here is one of our most ideal configurations. It's a gel seal filter. And gel seal provides a very low amount of compression to be able to seal that filter to its seal surface. And it's important to seal the seal surface because we don't want any bypass. We don't want to degrade the overall efficiency or overall performance of the system itself by having air bypass this HEPA filter. So we want to utilize the efficiency stated on this filter as best as possible. So we have a seal surface that's completely sealed around the entire perimeter, and we have a knife edge and a gel track, and we have a clamping mechanism to ensure that that filter will stay sealed to that seal surface throughout its life.
Well, that sounds to me like what we were talking about earlier, the high quality that you've learned from the containment industry, and where you're bringing that technology over to a product like this. And I imagine this is something that differentiates this product for maybe some other products that they may even have a HEPA filter, but they don't have the sealing technology, which of course would negate the HEPA filter to begin with. Is that fair to say?
That's correct. That's correct. So we've basically taken the sealing method that we use in biocontainment applications, where we primarily use our gel seal filters. And we've taken that sealing method and applied it to this CC500 so that we know we're getting a true seal surface, truly sealed seal surface, and that we're getting true performance coming out of this HEPA filter that has been tested to a standard. So we can designate this filter as a true HEPA filter as well.
Okay, great. So we were also saying that you can use this in other applications to create isolation rooms and things like that. This is your standalone air purifier configuration. What would you do to turn this machine into basically a device that could create a negatively pressurized zone?
So if you purchase the unit, you can purchase it in 2 or 3 different configurations. We have the in-room air purifier that you see here, where air 360 degrees is drawn in from the bottom and 360 degrees radiated outward from the top. But if you want to convert this to an isolation style unit, you can order it as the isolation style unit, which has a ducted collar, or you can purchase a retrofit kit in the field. So if you want to later on down the road convert either an isolation unit to an in-room air purifier or an air purifier to an isolation unit, you can purchase a kit, and it simply is just removing the fasteners along the perimeter, taking off the particular panel that you want to replace, and replacing it with the appropriate application. So in this setup here, we have converted this unit from in-room air purification to exhaust isolation room application. So you would connect ductwork to this 10-inch slip collar connection, and you would exhaust this outdoors. And this provides a negative isolation room environment.
Okay, all right. So that's, again, I think that in the beginning of the pandemic, as we were talking about, hospitals were desperate for machines that would do just this here. But when you designed this machine, you designed it to also do another function, which is act as just a standalone air purifier, as maybe a supplement to other air filtration in a bigger facility, like a doctor's office or something like that, as you mentioned before. So I think that's an excellent dual function that this machine has.
That's correct. So it's got the dual functionality of being able to perform the in-room exhaust or in-room recirc. But we also have another functionality that is not displayed here, but you can see it in our literature and in our drawings. We can also add an inlet collar to the bottom side of this unit and turn this unit horizontally. So we can mount this unit on a wall, or we can mount it interstitially inside the ceiling space, in between in that mechanical space above your ceiling. So it acts as a concealed air purifier from that point. You can exhaust it outside and have a concealed negative isolation type unit, or you can then recircuit using the ducted collars into the room and out of the room and have a concealed air purifier as well. So it's a very versatile style air cleaning device.
Okay, so it's actually a three functions really is in one single machine. Well, Keith, I think this is a brilliant machine. I know that it's been sought out by a lot of different organizations who are in need of this. So I would say this is an outstanding machine. I think, as you said earlier, the different industries that are able to use this machine, you know, food and beverage, pharmaceuticals, doctor's office. I was at a doctor's office the other day and they had a competing one, a very small thing, but I think this is something that would really work extremely well in dental offices and all those areas. So I could see it being very well received. Keith, thank you for your time. This was, again, an excellent job creating this device. I think it's going to be very well received, and appreciate your time with us, Keith. And again, thank you for everyone watching. And Keith, I can't say enough that this is a very impressive piece of equipment.